Good evening, beautiful soul. Come here. Yes, just like that. Settle in. Let the weight of the day slide off your shoulders the way warm sand slips between fingers. I'm so glad you made it back to this little haven on the internet, where we dim the lights and travel very, very far away, together. Tonight we're going somewhere gentle. Somewhere almost no one ever thinks to visit when they close their eyes. Dawn finds you among gentle Indus Valley potters, 5,000 years before anyone will invent hurry. The sky is still blushing rose gold, and the great river, still called Indus in a tongue no one here has needed to name yet, moves past you like a sleepy cat. Brick houses, small and perfect, glow in that first light, their corners rounded by centuries of kind hands. Somewhere a lone rooster tries a note and thinks better of it and goes back to sleep. You won't survive this story, you know. It's far too peaceful. Your pulse will slow, your to-do list will evaporate, and you might never want to open your eyes again. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and let me know how your day has really been. Your worries, your exhaustion, or even a tiny joy that made you smile. I'm here to truly listen and offer the most sincere, heartfelt advice I can. Now turn off the lights, take a deep, slow breath, let your tiredness melt away, and gently close your eyes. Let's drift together into tonight's dreamlike lands. And tomorrow morning, if you still remember, send me a message and tell me what you dreamed. The air smells of wet earth and faint wood smoke. You were lying on a woven reed mat just outside a low doorway. Your body feels strangely light, as though someone has lifted yesterday's armor off your bones while you slept. A soft thud, thud, thud starts nearby, steady as a heartbeat, the sound of the first potter settling at his wheel. You open your eyes fully. Across the lane, an old man with silver hair tied in a loose knot is already coaxing a lump of river clay upward, his palms dark and shining. He glances over, notices you watching, and the corners of his eyes crinkle in welcome. No words, none are needed. He simply tilts his head. Come. You rise. The packed earth is cool beneath your bare feet. Somewhere, water sings in a brick channel. A little girl carrying a basket of cow dung cakes for the kiln passes you. She smiles, showing a missing front tooth, and keeps walking. Everything here moves at the pace of breath. You reach the potter's courtyard. Low awnings of white cotton filter the newborn sun into honey-colored patches on the ground. 3 wheels are already turning. The air is thick with that cool mineral smell of fresh clay, the scent that says the world is still being shaped. The old man pats the empty place beside him. You sit. He tears off a moist gray lump, places it in your uncertain hands, and closes your fingers around it. It is heavier than you expected, and alive, almost warm. Without hurry, he guides your thumbs to the center of the spinning mound on his wheel. The clay resists, then yields, then rises like a slow sigh between your palms. You feel it. The quiet miracle of something structureless deciding to become a vessel. Around you, the village stirs softly. Doors creak, goats bleat once in greeting, and the river keeps its ancient promise to carry everything gently downstream. You are here, exactly here, and the day has only just begun. The scent of wet clay thickens around you now, cool and clean, like the breath of the river stones after rain. You stay seated on the low wooden stool the old potter nudged toward you, your palms still tingling from that first rising cylinder that surprised you both by not collapsing. He gives a small, satisfied nod, one craftsman to another, and returns to his own wheel. The rhythm takes you, thud, thud, thud of the kick wheel beneath his heel, the soft slap of wet clay, the hush of water drizzled from a clay bowl to keep everything supple. You could sit here forever and let the morning widen inside your chest. Other potters drift in, unhurried. A woman with a long braid the color of midnight ties a faded indigo cloth around her waist and settles opposite you. She smiles without showing teeth, the kind of smile that already knows you belong. Two younger men carry fresh river silt in wide, shallow baskets balanced on their hips. The silt steams faintly in the cool air. They tip it onto a little at a time into a sunken brick trough where another woman kneads it with her feet, slow dancing steps that make quiet sucking sounds. No one speaks. The only voices are the river, the wheels, and the occasional soft grunt of effort. You rise and wander closer to the trough. The clay under her arches is the color of storm clouds. She notices you watching and lifts one foot, showing you the perfect gray mask coating her skin. With a playful tilt of her head, she invites you to step in. You hesitate. Your modern soles feel suddenly clumsy, but the clay looks so inviting that you slide in beside her. It is cool, almost cold, and heavier than you imagined. You sink to the ankles, then the calves. She places your hands on her shoulders for balance and begins the slow march again. Left, right, press, release. The clay yields and grabs, until it turns satin smooth beneath you both. Your legs remember something your mind never learned. You feel the village breathing with you. Across the courtyard, someone has begun stacking yesterday's pots in the shade to stiffen. They are simple, honest shapes, wide-bellied storage jars, delicate drinking cups no bigger than a child's fist, flat plates with rims turned outward like flower petals. Nothing is wasted. Even the broken shards from last week's firing are being ground into fine powder to mix with the new clay, giving it memory, giving it strength. You watch a boy no older than 10 sweep the shards into a stone mortar. His pestle rises and falls in perfect cadence with the wheels. Everything here is a circle. A soft breeze lifts the cotton awnings and carries the smell of warm flatbread from a nearby roof. Your stomach answers before you can stop it. The woman beside you laughs silently, eyes folding into crescents, and points toward a low doorway where an older woman is sliding breads off a clay griddle with a wooden paddle. You step out of the trough, clay clinging to your legs like a second skin, and the morning sun touches it, already beginning to dry it into pale cracks. You feel strangely proud of those cracks, as if they are proof you were useful. The old potter looks up from his finished bowl, tall, impossibly thin, perfectly symmetrical, and sets it carefully in the shade beside its brothers. Then he wipes his hands on a rag and gestures for you to follow him deeper into the cool maze of roofs and courtyards. The scent of wet clay follows you like a faithful dog. Somewhere ahead, a kiln is already breathing heat into the day, and you realize you have not thought about tomorrow, even once. His hand brushes your elbow, barely a touch, more suggestion than guidance, and you follow him through a narrow passage between two houses. The walls are warm from yesterday's sun, the bricks laid in perfect English bond without a single chip or hurry mark. You trail your fingertips along them and feel the faint ridges of fingerprints left 5,000 years before your own. The old potter notices, smiles the smallest smile, and keeps walking. He leads you to a smaller courtyard, shaded by a single neem tree. One wheel waits here, larger than the others, its wooden disc dark with generations of clay. A single lump the size of a melon sits centered and glistening. He sits waiting. The old man sits cross-legged, pats the ground beside him, and places your hands over his on the clay. You expect instruction, but he only breathes. In, out, in, out. The wheel begins to turn under his slow kick, and the clay answers before you do. It is heavier than the first lump, denser, almost stubborn. Your thumbs press down to open it, and it pushes back like a living thing. He covers your hands completely with his. His palms are cool, ridged like riverbed sand, and together you coax the center open. The clay sighs upward in a thick, steady column. You feel it in your shoulders, in your spine. The exact moment when resistance becomes partnership. The walls rise thin and even, trembling only slightly when your attention wavers. He steadies you without seeming to move at all. Around you, the courtyard holds its breath. A small girl peeks from behind the doorway, eyes wide, then vanishes. Somewhere a goat bell tinkles once. The old man lifts one finger from your wrist, permission, and you try shaping the rim yourself. You turn it outward, soft as a lip, then inward again, testing. The clay allows everything, forgives everything. When you lift your hands, a wide, graceful water jar stands glistening, taller than any you have seen today. It looks impossible that your uncertain fingers helped birth it. He studies the jar, then studies you. Something passes across his face, recognition maybe, or memory. He reaches to a tiny shelf and lifts down a smooth river pebble the color of storm clouds, presses it into your palm and closes your fingers around it. A gift or a promise. You understand you are meant to keep it with you while the pot dries, to carry its weight until the shape is ready for fire. You slip the cool stone into the small pouch at your waist and feel it settle against your hip like an anchor. Only then does he rise. He gestures toward the jar, then toward the row of finished pots waiting in the shade, telling you without words that your creation will join them, that it already belongs. A quiet pride blooms in your chest, warm and unearned and perfect. You want to thank him, but the words feel too loud for this courtyard. Instead, you bow your head the way you have seen others do, palms together. He mirrors the gesture, eyes shining, and for a moment the neon leaves above you flicker green gold in a breeze you cannot feel on your skin, but do not hear. He turns to leave, but pauses at the doorway and looks back. With one finger, he traces a slow spiral in the air, the same motion you will see later painted on 1,000 vessels, then taps his heart twice and points to you. You understand. The spiral begins here. You nod, throat tight. He slips away as quietly as smoke. You stay with your jar a little longer. The sun climbs, the clay begins to pale and tighten, and the pebble in your pouch grows warm against your skin. Somewhere deeper in the village, another wheel begins its soft thud, 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 calling you onward. You leave the quiet courtyard carrying the faint smell of the new jar on your fingertips and step into a wider lane where the women have already begun to paint. Low reed mats are spread in the shade of a mud-plastered wall, and dozens of pots, some still leather-hard, some already bone-dry, wait in patient rows. The air here is different, lighter, spiced with the green sharpness of crushed neem leaves and the faint metallic tang of oxide pigments. A circle of women sits cross-legged, skirts tucked neatly beneath them. One grinds red ochre against a stone with slow, hypnotic circles. Another strains black manganese through a scrap of cotton into a tiny terracotta bowl. No one looks up at first, yet space opens for you as naturally as water parting for a thrown pebble. You sit. A smooth, flat pot is placed in your lap, its surface the color of river mist, still cool from the night. A thin wooden stick, chewed at one end into the softest brush, is pressed into your hand. The woman beside you, her hair threaded with jasmine that has already begun to wilt, dips her own stick into the black and begins. A single continuous line flows from the rim, a looping spiral that tightens, loosens, tightens again, never quite touching itself. Then, without lifting the brush, she births a peacock, long neck arched, tail feathers fanning into perfect geometry. The bird looks ready to step off the curve of the pot and drink from an invisible river. She finishes, wipes the stick on her thumb, and offers it to you. Your hand trembles a little. The clay beneath the pot is so receptive, it almost pulls the color from the brush. You start with simple dots along the shoulder. 1, 2, 3. Then dare a wavy line that becomes a river, then a row of tiny fish swimming against it. The women watch without judgment. When you pause, unsure, the jasmine-haired woman leans over and adds a single lotus bloom floating above your fish. Suddenly, the whole scene lives. You feel your breath loosen. Another pot is passed, taller, meant for grain. This time they hand you the red. You paint bold triangles pointing downward, earth, then smaller ones pointing upward, sky, then fill the spaces between with cross-hatching so fine it looks like woven cloth. An older woman with silver bangles nods approval and shows you how to flick the brush so the lines feather at the edges. You copy the motion until your wrist forgets it was ever stiff from scrolling phones that don't exist yet. Hours slip past like warm honey. The sun climbs, but the wall keeps you cool. Patterns appear under your hands you swear you have never seen before, and yet somehow remember. Running ibex, endless swastikas turning sunwise for luck. People leaves, veined like open hands. Each motif is older than empires, older than the names of gods, and still feels brand new when the wet pigment kisses the clay. You understand, without anyone telling you, that these are not decorations. They are sentences in a language the mouth has forgotten, but the fingers still speak fluently. At one point, a little boy brings a clay cup of cool buttermilk. You drink, and the sour-sweet taste makes you realize your cheeks ache from smiling. When you hand the cup back, he turns it so you can see the tiny handprint pressed into its base, 5 perfect fingers outlined in red. A signature. You look down at the pot in your lap and, on impulse, press your own thumb into the wet clay just below the rim. The women murmur appreciation. The print will shrink and harden in the kiln, but it will never disappear. By the time the shadows begin to lengthen, your arms are streaked red and black like a tiger's, and a small stack of painted vessels bears traces of your uncertain, wondering hands. The jasmine-haired woman gathers them gently, sets them in the sun to fix the color before the evening damp can blur them, and then, almost shyly, touches the spiral you painted on a tiny oil lamp. She lifts it, turns it so the light will one day dance inside your lines, and places it back with the reverence of someone handling scripture. You rise, knees creaking softly, every fingerprint tingling. The lane ahead glows golden, and the granaries, those quiet, towering giants, wait to teach you how a city can feed itself without ever raising a sword. You step out of the painting lane into the wide central avenue, and the granaries rise before you like patient mountains made of brick. They are enormous, far taller than the little 2-story houses, yet they wear their size lightly, the way a camel wears the desert. Long, gentle ramps slope up their sides, so workers can carry baskets without ever lifting them overhead. Every brick is the same perfect rectangle, sun-baked to the color of toasted almonds, and laid so precisely that you could not slip a sesame seed between them. A line of people moves up one ramp in single file, each person with a basket balanced on the head or hip. They are bringing the new harvest, golden wheat, dark millet, fat green peas still in their pods. No one hurries. The rhythm is almost a dance. Step, pause, tip the basket, step, pause. You fall in behind a woman whose long silver braid swings like a pendulum. She glances back, sees the paint still under your nails, and her eyes soften. Without breaking stride, she shifts her basket to one arm and gestures for you to follow her all the way to the top. From the high platform, the whole settlement spreads beneath you like a quiet promise. You can see the river glinting, the grid of streets straight as stretched thread, the cotton awnings over the potter's yards fluttering like prayer flags. Smoke from a dozen small cooking fires rises in lazy blue ribbons. No palaces, no temples with golden doors, no walls to keep anyone out. Just this calm, ordered space where thousands of people have agreed to live gently together. The woman tips her wheat into the square mouth of the granary. It vanishes with a soft rushing sound, like dry rain. She shows you the measuring rope hanging beside the opening, knots spaced exactly 1 hand width apart. Every basket is counted this many knots, every day, every family. Nothing is hoarded, nothing is wasted. You run your fingers along the rope and feel the tiny worn places where generations of thumbs have worried the same knot smooth. Inside the granary it is cool and dim, smelling of sun-warmed grain and faint dust. Light filters through small ventilation windows high in the walls, catching on motes that drift like slow golden fish. The grain already stored reaches higher than your waist, a soft sea you could almost lie down in and disappear. A boy with a wooden shovel stands on the pile, gently leveling it so the new wheat can lie even. He smiles at you, offers the shovel. You take it. The wood is warm, polished by countless palms. You push the grain, it sighs and settles, and the small act feels like tucking the whole city in for the winter. When you climb down again, the woman waits at the bottom of the ramp. She presses something into your hand, a single perfect grain of wheat, larger than any you have ever seen, its beard still attached. She closes your fingers over it, then touches her heart and yours in the same motion she used earlier with the spiral. You understand. This grain is older than the city, carried here by her great-great-grandmother, planted and harvested and planted again for longer than anyone can count. It is a promise that tomorrow will be fed. You tuck the ancient seed into the pouch beside the river pebble. They clack together softly, stone and grain, the two things the people here trust most. The sun is high now, beating warmly on the back of your neck, and the great bath, that still, mirror-calm rectangle of water you have only glimpsed from afar, begins to call with the promise of coolness. You drift down the wide avenue now, barefoot on bricks that have been trodden smooth by 5,000 years of unhurried feet. The streets are straight as the flight of a heron, crossing each other at perfect right angles, and every corner is rounded, so nothing sharp edges never bruise a shoulder. Beneath your soles runs the quiet miracle no one here thinks to boast about. Covered brick drains, narrow but deep, carrying away every drop of wastewater with a soft, constant murmur. You pause at an inspection hole, peer down, and see the current sliding past, clean enough that tiny fish flick silver in the shadows. Someone has even wedged a broken pot shard across the flow to slow it, so nothing splashes. Children dart past you playing with clay marbles, painted the same red and black you still wear under your nails. They laugh without sound effects, just the bright music of breath and bare feet slapping brick. One little girl skids to a stop, stares at the paint on your hands, then solemnly offers you her favorite marble, black with a single white spiral. You crouch, accept it with both hands the way you have learned gifts are accepted here, and she runs off satisfied that the world is in order. No chariots thunder through these lanes, no horses clatter, no guards bark orders. The only vehicles are small two-wheeled carts pulled by zebu oxen with painted horns, moving so slowly the dust barely rises. Even the dogs trot with lowered tails, as if noise itself has been gently asked to leave. You pass a toy seller squatting in the shade, tiny clay oxen, miniature pots, a whole menagerie no bigger than your thumb. He fans them with a palm leaf to keep the flies away, and never once calls out. People simply stop when they feel like it, choose what makes their heart smile, and leave a few sesame seeds or a bead in the shallow bowl. At the next crossroads you come upon a weighing station. A man sits beneath a cotton awning with a balance scale made of wood and string. Beside him lie standardized stone weights, smooth as eggs, each carved with a single line mark no one would dream of shaving down. A woman unloads small sacks of dried fish from her head basket. He weighs them, nods, marks a clay tablet with a reed stylus, and hands her a token, a tiny fired clay cone. She tucks it into her hair and walks on. Trust is the quietest currency here. No one clutches, no one counts twice. You turn into a narrower lane where the houses lean close enough to share whispers. Washing hangs overhead, indigo skirts, white cotton dhotis, a child's tiny tunic dyed sunflower yellow. The breeze lifts them like prayer flags. A very old woman sits in her doorway spinning cotton with a drop spindle that twirls almost too fast to see. The thread grows so fine it looks like moonlight being pulled from her fingers. She glances up, sees you watching, and without pausing, lifts the spindle so the thread catches the sun and vanishes, an illusion, a gift. You smile, she smiles back with 3 remaining teeth and keeps spinning. Every few paces, a small platform of bricks juts from a wall, just high enough to sit on. People rest there, fanning themselves with palm leaves, sharing a clay cup of water passed hand to hand. You accept when it reaches you. The water tastes of the river and of the clay cup itself, cool and sweet. When you hand it on, the next person rinses it with a swirl and drinks from the same place your lips touched. No one wipes it. No one needs to. The great bath lies just beyond the next corner, its wide brick stairway already shimmering with heat mirage. You can feel the coolness rising from it like an invitation written in mist. The stairway down into the great bath is wide enough for 10 people to walk shoulder to shoulder, yet only a handful descend at a time, as though the water itself has asked for quiet. Each step is shallow, worn faintly hollow in the center by centuries of bare and sandaled feet. You follow an elderly man whose white hair is twisted into a knot at the nape of his neck. He moves like someone who has done this every midday of his life. Halfway down, the heat of the street loosens its grip, and coolness rises to meet you, damp and green-smelling, carrying the faintest trace of lotus. At the bottom, the pool stretches before you, longer than any modern swimming pool and perfectly rectangular, its bricks sealed with bitumen so dark they look wet even when dry. The water is unnaturally still, a sheet of living glass reflecting the burning sky. Only the smallest ripples move across it where someone has just stepped in. Around the edges, wide platforms allow people to sit with their feet dangling, or to lie back fully clothed and let the water cradle them. No splashing, no shouting, just the soft hush of breath and the occasional sigh of complete surrender. You step down the final stair. The water kisses your ankles, cool as melted moonlight. One more step and it climbs your calves, your knees, your thighs, until you are waist deep and the day's dust dissolves away like a bad memory someone else once had. You sink lower. The pool is deeper than it looked. The water closes over your shoulders, your neck, the lobe of your ear. Sound changes. Everything becomes rounder, softer, as though the world has been wrapped in cotton. Others float nearby, eyes closed, arms spread like starfish. A young woman with a baby strapped to her chest in a cotton sling drifts past. The child sleeps open-mouthed, tiny fist curled around her mother's necklace. An old man sits on the submerged bench, water lapping at his beard, humming a note so low it is felt more than heard. You let your feet leave the bottom. The water lifts you effortlessly. For a moment, you are weightless, ageless, nameless. Sunlight strikes the surface and fractures into trembling coins of light on the brick floor far below. You watch them dance and realize you are smiling for no reason at all. Someone has scattered marigold petals. They drift against your cheek like soft blessings. You turn onto your back and the sky fills your eyes, pure, blinding blue, until the water rocks you so gently that the blue begins to rock too. Time loosens. It might be minutes, it might be hours. You only know that when you finally stand again, your skin feels new, your heart beats slow and certain. Water streams from your hair, your borrowed cotton clothes cling and then release. You climb the steps on the far side, each footfall lighter than the last. At the top, people have laid out simple reed mats in the shade. You stretch out on one, still dripping, and the warm air dries you almost instantly. A woman offers you a clay cup of cool buttermilk flavored with crushed mint. You drink. It tastes like forgiveness. From here you can see the whole city resting in the cradle of noon. Smoke from cooking fires rises straight up, too lazy to lean. Even the birds seem to fly more slowly. You close your eyes and feel the great bath breathing beneath the streets, a hidden heart keeping everything calm. Then, faintly at first, like a potter testing a half-dry jar with one careful knuckle, the ground gives the smallest tap. A storage jar on a nearby roof tilts, wobbles, and splits with a soft pop. Grain spills in a golden fan across the tiles. Someone gasps, the first sharp sound you have heard all day. The calm has developed a tiny crack. The crack is small at first, just a hairline fracture in the day's perfect stillness. The spilled grain slides off the roof in a soft, golden rain and patters onto the lane below like warm hail. People look up, puzzled, then look at one another. No one panics. Panic has no word here yet, but you feel the shift. The air tightens, the light sharpens, the river's distant voice deepens by half a note. You rise from the mat, water still beating on your skin, and follow the small crowd that gathers beneath the broken jar. The potter who owns the roof is already there, touching the split vessel with reverent fingers as though it were a wounded bird. The crack runs clean from rim to base. The two halves lean apart like opening doors. Inside, the grain has poured out almost to the last kernel. He lifts a handful, lets it sift through his fingers, and the worry in his eyes is quiet but unmistakable. Another tremor comes, gentler than a sigh, yet strong enough to rattle the clay beads in a woman's hair. A water pot on a nearby wall tips, rolls, and shatters into red dust. Children stop mid-game. Dogs tuck their tails. You feel it in your teeth this time, a low hum rising through the bricks and into your bones. The ground is speaking, and for the first time in your stay here, no one quite knows the language. People move without hurry, but with purpose now. Women sweep spilled grain into their skirts. Men climb roofs to check other jars. Someone begins a soft chant, 3 notes repeated, rising and falling like breathing. And others join until the lane is filled with that small, steady sound. It is not fear shaped into music so it can be carried. You find yourself humming along, though you have never heard the tune before. The old potter from the first dawn appears beside you, river pebbles still warm in your pouch. He places a hand on your shoulder, points toward the river. You follow his gaze. The Indus, which has had a reputation for gentleness, has begun to flex. The far bank looks subtly closer. The current carries whole tree branches instead of the usual leaves. A sandbar that was there yesterday has vanished. A third tremor, stronger. Dust drifts from the granary roofs like pale snow. A baby begins to cry, then hushes as its mother presses it to her breast and keeps sweeping grain. No one runs. Instead, they form lines, one to salvage, one to carry baskets toward higher ground, one to calm the animals. You fall into the salvage line. Your hands remember the weight of wheat from earlier. You fill a basket, 2, 3 baskets, pass them along. The chant continues, growing softer rather than louder, the way a lullaby does when the child is almost asleep. By late afternoon, the sky has turned the color of heated bronze. The river has climbed another handspan. Water licks at the lowest terraces where the vegetable plots grow. You help an old woman carry her seed jars to the top of a granary ramp. She thanks you by pressing a single dried date into your palm. It is the sweetest thing you have ever tasted. As the sun lowers, the tremors ease, but the worry does not. Torches are lit early. The scent of sesame oil joins the smells of wet earth and warm grain. Families gather in courtyards, speaking little, touching often. You sit among them, paint still under your nails, river pebble heavy in your pouch, and feel the city listening to its own heartbeat, slow. The night work is about to begin. Night settles, but it is not the soft, forgiving night you have come to expect. The moon is almost full, yet the river has stolen some of its silver and turned it into a wide, restless mirrors that creep closer every minute. You stand at the edge of the lower terrace with the old potter, and watch the water lick the cucumber vines you helped plant only yesterday in your imagination. The plants shiver, then surrender, bending like tired dancers as the current claims them. Another tremor rolls through, deeper this time, a long, slow groan from the bones of the earth. Somewhere a kiln exhales a cloud of sparks that die before they reach the ground. The river answers with a voice you have never heard from it before, thick, deliberate, almost thoughtful. Whole trees glide past now, roots clawing at the sky. A reed boat that was tied to a stake this morning drifts by upside down, oars still lashed in place like broken wings. People move in steady streams toward the higher streets, carrying what matters most. Women balance tall storage jars on their heads as calmly as if they were going to market. Men shoulder rolled sleeping mats and wooden tool chests. Children clutch clay toys and favorite blankets. No one pushes, no one cries out. The same three-note chant drifts through the lanes, softer now, almost a lullaby for the city itself. You join a line ferrying seed jars from a low house that already stands ankle-deep. The water is cool and smells of uprooted lotus. Each time you lift a jar, the river tugs gently at your calves as though asking you to stay. You pass the jars upward, hand to hand, until they reach the granary platforms. Someone has started small fires along the high street, not for warmth, but to see by. The flames tremble in the uneasy air and paint everyone's face the color of warm clay. The jasmine-haired woman from the painting circle finds you. Her eyes are wide but steady. She presses a tiny oil lamp into your hand, the one you painted with the spiral that caught the light. The wick is already trimmed, the bowl filled. She touches your wrist once, then moves on to help an elder whose legs have begun to shake. You light the lamp from a torch and cup the flame against the wind that has finally remembered how to blow. Hours slide past like beads on an unseen string. The river rises another handspan. The lowest houses are now knee-deep. You help carry a birthing bed, a simple wooden frame with woven ropes, up the granary ramp. The woman who will need it soon walks beside it, one hand on her belly, humming the chant under her breath. When the bed is safe, she touches your cheek in silent thanks and keeps walking. By the time the moon reaches the zenith, the city has folded itself into the higher quarter. The streets below have become slow, dark canals reflecting torchlight. You stand on a rooftop with the old potter and look down at what the river is borrowing. The great bath has become part of the river now. Water pours over its wide steps in steady sheets, as though the pool has simply grown too large for its walls and decided to wander. He places his hand on your shoulder again. The river pebble in your pouch feels hot. He points, not to the water, but to the people still working calmly in its glow, tying boats together into rafts, lashing jars to wooden frames, wrapping infants in cotton slings. Then he points east, where the land rises gently into low hills no flood has ever reached. The decision has already been made, quiet as snowfall. The city will move with the river, not against it. Torchlight flickers over hundreds of quiet faces as the night repair begins. But it is not repair in the way you once understood the word. It is salvage, love, and farewell all braided together. The river has paused at the edge of the middle terraces, as though listening to the chant that never stops. No one sleeps. Instead, families work shoulder to shoulder under the trembling flames, turning the city's last hours in this place into something gentle. You carry armfuls of still wet clay pots up the long granary ramps. Their painted spirals and peacocks glow briefly in the torchlight before disappearing into the safety of high storage rooms. Each time you set one down, you touch its rim once, the way you might touch a sleeping child's hair. The old potter walks beside you, slower now, but he refuses help. He carries the tall water jar you shaped together that first dawn. When he places it with the others, he rests his palm on its shoulder for a long moment, eyes closed, as if listening to it breathe. On the rooftops, men lash wooden beams into rafts. Women weave reed mats tight enough to float seed jars and sleeping babies. Children run with armfuls of cotton string, their bare feet silent on the warm bricks. Someone has started a second fire, smaller, almost secret, where flatbreads are cooked and passed hand to hand. You eat one without tasting, only feeling the warmth travel down your arms like borrowed strength. Between trips, you help reinforce the lowest kiln. The river has begun to nose at its base, dark tongues of water slipping between the bricks. You pack fresh clay into the gaps the way you once packed it on the wheel, slow, steady circles. The kiln exhales heat against your face. The new clay steams and hardens almost instantly. It will not survive the night, but it will stand a little longer, long enough for the last pots inside to finish their slow baking. When the final jar is lifted out, red hot, glowing like a captured sunset, the potter breaks it open with a stick. Inside, the clay has turned the exact color of the dawn you woke to. He offers you a shard still warm. You tuck it beside the pebble and the ancient wheat grain. Hours thin, the moon begins its descent, pale and tired. The river has claimed the painting lane now. You glimpse floating marigold petals and a single indigo skirt caught on a roof like a flag of surrender. Yet the chant holds. It has grown softer, almost private, the way breath sounds when someone is falling asleep against your shoulder. Just before the first hint of rose returns to the sky, the last raft is finished. They are not grand, only lashed beams and reed bundles, but they bob confidently when tested. Families begin loading them with the calm of people moving house across the street instead of across years. The old potter finds you again. He presses the river pebble into your palm one final time, closes your fingers over it, and points east. His eyes say what his voice never has: come. You board the last raft with the painting women and the grain counters and the quiet men who kept the drains running clean. Someone pushes off with a long pole. The current catches you at once, gentle but firm. The same hand that took the city, now carrying what remains of it away. Behind you, torches wink out one by one as people step into boats. The city exhales, folds into itself, and slips beneath the water like a sleeper turning over in bed. Ahead, the eastern sky softens to the color of fresh clay. The rafts drift together in a loose, living constellation. No one looks back for long. The moon slips away behind the hills just as the first pale peach of morning touches the sky. You sit near the front of the raft, knees drawn up, river pebble cupped in your palm like a small warm heart. The current carries you smoothly, almost tenderly, as though the Indus has decided to cradle instead of devour. All around, the little fleet of rafts drifts in loose formation, 20, 30, more, each one lit by a single clay lamp whose flame barely trembles. The chant has thinned to a murmur now, a shared breath that rises and falls with the slow rocking of the boats. No one speaks of loss. They speak softly of soil, of which seeds travel best, of how long it takes sesame to sprout on higher ground, of the exact distance a kiln needs from a tamarisk grove so the wind carries the heat just right. A woman behind you plans tomorrow's bread as calmly as if she were still standing in her own courtyard. Children sleep curled against mother's hips, tiny fists still clutching their clay oxen. You watch the old potter on the raft to your left. He sits very straight, the tall water jar you made together balanced between his knees. Every now and then, he rests one palm on its cool shoulder, checking that it still breathes. When the raft bumps gently against another, he looks over, meets your eyes, and lifts two fingers to his heart in that same spiral gesture that now feels like your shared pulse. The sky widens into rose and gold. The river narrows here, sliding between low bluffs where acacias lean out like curious grandparents. The water shallows, the raft scrapes softly, then glides again. Someone at the back begins the three-note chant once more, but slower, almost a lullaby. Others join until every raft carries a fragment of the tune. You feel it in your bones. The city is not ending. It is only changing its address. At a wide bend, the river releases you. The lead raft grounds gently on a gravel bar, and the poleman leaps into ankle-deep water to steady it. One by one, the boats nose in, forming a crescent of lamplight on the shore. People step out without hurry, water swirling around their calves like a fond farewell. Children wake and laugh at the cold shock. The sun lifts its first bright edge above the hills, and the new land is suddenly blazingly gold. Elders walk the gravel bar, testing the soil with their toes, crumbling it in their fists. They nod. It is good soil, well drained, kissed by the same river that asked the old city to move. Someone stakes a cotton string between two acacia trunks to mark the first straight line of what will become a street. Someone else begins unloading seed jars. Someone plants the first tamarisk sapling brought all this way wrapped in wet cloth, so the new kilns will one day have shade. You help carry the tall jar ashore. The old potter sets it upright on the exact spot where the first corner of the first house will rise. He presses your hand against its still perfect rim, then his own hand over yours. The clay is cool again, patient. It has waited 5,000 years already. It can wait a little longer for fire. By noon, the gravel bar is busy with quiet purpose. Reed shelters going up, tiny cooking fires, children already drawing new street plans in the dirt with sticks. The river keeps flowing past, carrying a single marigold petal that once floated in the great bath. You watch it round the bend and disappear. The old potter sits beneath the tamarisk sapling and begins turning a tiny lump of new clay on a small travel wheel someone remembered to bring. You sit beside him. The wheel starts its familiar thud, 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 and the day begins again, softer than ever. Weeks slide past like beads of water on a lotus leaf. The new bend in the river becomes home before anyone has time to call it temporary. The first straight street appears almost overnight. Two parallel cotton strings stretched taut, bricks laid inside them with the same unhurried precision you remember from the old place. You carry baskets of river mud mixed with straw, treading it with the same dancing steps you learned in the clay trough long ago. Your legs remember even if your mind, still modern mind, sometimes stumbles over how quickly the past can become the present. The tall water jar you shaped that first dawn stands exactly where the old potter placed it, marking the corner of what is now the potter's lane. Every morning someone leaves a tiny offering at its base, a marigold, a sesame cake, a single peacock feather. The jar waits, patient as ever, for walls to rise around it. You help raise them. The bricks are smaller here, lighter to carry on the slope, but they fit together just as perfectly. When the first low wall reaches your waist, the jasmine-haired woman appears with her hair still threaded with flowers that refuse to wilt, and together you press your thumbs side by side into the topmost wet brick. The prints dry there forever, yours and hers, two small half-moons holding up the sky. Kilns rise next, domed and breathing, fed with tamarisk and dry dung. The first firing is quiet, only a handful of pots, almost a prayer. You stay up all night with the others, feeding the fire in slow, reverent handfuls. When the kiln is opened at dawn, the tall jar comes out singing. Its walls thin and strong, the black spiral you painted glowing like a secret. The old potter lifts it high so the sunrise strikes through the clay, turning it translucent rose. Everyone exhales at once. The new village has a voice. Houses grow around courtyards open to the sky. Drains appear again, smaller but just as careful. Children chase each other down lanes that already feel ancient. Someone plants a neem sapling in the exact center. Someone else hangs a swing from its lowest branch before it is tall enough to need one. You find yourself laughing at the confidence of it all. One evening, you sit on the half-built wall of what will be the new great bath, smaller this time, but still perfect, and watch the river far below. It has settled into its new bed, calm again, carrying only leaves and the occasional lotus. The old city is only a darker patch of green now, a place where fish dart above rooftops no one will ever see again. You no longer feel sadness, only the soft ache of something loved and released. The old potter brings you a cup of buttermilk. You drink together in silence. When the cup is empty, he places it upside down on the wall between you, an old habit that means the conversation is finished and perfect. Then he rises, touches the spiral scar on his heart, and walks toward the glowing mouth of the new kiln. Years begin to fold, gentle as cloth. The neem grows. Children who were babies on the rafts now run the lanes with clay marbles. The tall jar stands in the finished courtyard, filled daily with cool water and marigolds floating on top. Your own hands, once uncertain, now turn the wheel without thinking. The pebble, the ancient wheat grain, the warm shard from the last firing in the old place. They live in a tiny niche above your sleeping mat, keeping watch. One soft evening, when the sky is the exact color of fresh clay and the first stars prick through, you sit among the descendants of those gentle potters, though by now the word descendant has lost its edges, and feel the wheel turn under your steady foot. The clay rises, flawless and familiar, into whatever shape the night asks. You are home. You have always been home. The fire is low now, only a glow the color of embers in a tired heart. You sit on a low mud bench outside the newest kiln, its mouth still breathing soft heat into the cool night. Around you, the village has curled into itself like a sleeping cat. Lamps dim behind cotton curtains. A baby murmurs once and settles. The river keeps its ancient promise far below. Your hands rest in your lap, palms up, the lines deepened by decades of clay, yet strangely gentle. The wheel beside you is still, its wooden disc dark and shining with the memory. A young girl, your granddaughter perhaps, or simply the newest pair of hands learning the spiral, leans against your knee, already half dreaming. You stroke her hair without thinking, the same way the old potter once steadied your trembling fingers. She smells of wood smoke and warm milk. In her sleep, she makes the small sucking motion of a baby at the breast, though she is long past that. You smile into the dark. The tall jar stands nearby, filled tonight with fireflies someone caught in a lotus leaf. Their light drifts up the black spiral you painted lifetimes ago and makes it pulse like a quiet breath. Every now and then one escapes, circles your head once, and returns to the jar, as if the spiral were the safest place in the world. You lift the river pebble from the niche where it has rested all these years. It is warm, almost hot, though the night is cool. You close your fist around it and feel the years collapse. The dawn you woke among strangers who became family. The night the river asked the city to dance. The morning you stepped ashore with wet clay on your ankles and a future in your arms. All of it fits inside this small, smooth stone. The girl shifts, sighs, and is gone into dreams. You rise carefully so as not to wake her. Walk the 3 steps to the kiln and place the pebble on the still warm brick ledge. It belongs to the fire now, and to whoever needs its weight next. Then you return, gather the child against your chest, and feel her heartbeat sync with yours, the way the wheel once synced with the old potter's foot. Far off, an owl calls once. The river answers with its low, endless song. You rock, slowly, the way the earth once rocked the city into letting go. Everything is quiet. Everything is enough. The fireflies dim, one by one by one, until the spiral rests in pure darkness, complete. Your breathing slows, deepens, matches the slow breathing of the village, the slow breathing of the river, the slow breathing of the world turning beneath the quiet stars. There is nothing left to hold, nothing left to prove, only this gentle rocking, this shared warmth, this long, sweet drift. Let everything loosen now. Your shoulders, your thoughts, the last small knot behind your eyes. The story has carried you all the way home, and home is holding you. Feel the bench beneath you become cloud. Feel the night become blanket. Feel the centuries become a single soft exhale. You are safe. You are held. You are loved beyond measure. Sleep, dear one. The wheel will still be turning when you wake, and the river will still be singing, and someone will still be painting spirals that mean, I was here and I loved you. End of story. Sweet dreams.